Rolling. So, I am here with Olly Brown, Research Manager at Magenta. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I've travelled down from Edinburgh. We've got a team away day. We're in central London today.
It is very fancy. What is this place called? The Citizen
M. Yeah. We came here a few months ago and we quite liked it. I think we've actually had focus groups in these kind of rooms before because they're a bit more exciting than Premier Inn or whatever.
I could see that, a bit of inspiration. So do you guys do this often then? Because you was just mentioning a moment ago you don't have an office.
No, we don't have an office. So we try and meet for an away day quarterly. So every 3 months we come down, we reflect on how things are going, what we want our plans for the company to be. It's very collaborative, everyone's involved. And we try and meet more often as well, but we're quite scattered all over the place, so it's quite nice. We can work remotely. And
was that happening before COVID and all that, or?
No, there was an office before COVID. I actually joined a couple months into the pandemic, so I was fully remote from the start. Right. I was living in London at the time, but so there was an office, but then it felt like it wasn't really necessary anymore, and now we have a team of people that kind of spread in different parts of the country, so it's quite...
Makes it more efficient, right? You can get talent from different places.
Yeah, you don't have to restrict yourself to London like that. I feel especially prior to the pandemic, the research industry was so London focused.
It's true.
And it still is, and lots of people are hybrid and still living in London, but I feel like everyone feels like they've got a bit more flexibility where they can live now.
I've heard that a few times. People up in the Midlands and up north saying you Southerners think it's all about you. Yeah. So talk me through then, so your journey. I want to know about how you got into research. You can't start with, I just fell into research, is what everyone says.
I know everyone says it, and I'm not going to say those words, but I was very open-minded before I got into research. I was in my final year of uni, I studied languages, and I wasn't desperate to be a translator or a teacher, or they pigeonhole you into a couple.
How many languages do you speak?
I technically speak 3. I speak German and Russian. Anyway, so I studied languages, and final year I was I chose these languages to try and be employable, and I'm not getting a job, so I was getting more and more desperate and just applying to a range of things, and then I saw a job advert that said, do you want to spend your day talking about EastEnders with people?
Is that what?
No, this wasn't Magenta. This is my first agency I worked at.
Which agency was that?
It's called Hook. So they're TV and media research. That really caught my attention. I was that sounds like my perfect job. I'm going for it. So I went in, came up for the interview in London and got the job, and I was super excited because I love TV and I love popular culture and media and stuff. Yeah. So that was what I was doing at first. And then eventually I got to a point where I was okay, I love all this TV and media stuff, but I kind of want to broaden my horizons, see more of the research world. So I've kind of now done a broad spectrum of stuff, including
What was the entry role that you started in?
I was... The name of it was Content and Strategy Executive, which I will say when I first came into it, I was don't know exactly what this means, but basically the same as an RE research executive. So I was just doing all the kind of admin things, getting up to speed with what goes on in the research project, and it was all qualitative, so I didn't really have any quantity stuff going on at that point.
Are you still a quali?
I'll say I'm a quali. I do some quant elements, and I integrate quant into what I do. So we do mixed methods projects, but I prefer the qual side usually.
What was your first cheesy insights into insight? When you first joined, as you said, you didn't know what it was going to be like. What did you think when you first started?
Part of it seemed a bit babysitting, and because it was so basically the first agency was a kids research, like youth research as well as TV. So doing lots of cartoons, Disney Channel, Cartoon Network, those kind of things. So it's really cool. Yeah. But when you're trying to get a bunch of kids to sit down and watch a new cartoon pilot, they're not that great at doing it. So that was quite interesting to be like, I didn't really think I'd be doing this, but it's fun anyway.
I've just got this picture of like kids like, it's rubbish.
Yeah, they're the most honest people are kids. They're great because there's no like trying to impress you or be polite. They're just true to themselves, which I quite like.
Yeah. So alright, so you started there. You eventually start broadening your horizons, looking into different audiences, different subject matter. Was that before Magenta, or was there another step before Magenta?
There was another step before Magenta, so I went to an agency called Truth.
Ah, you were at Truth.
Yeah, I was
at Truth. You were there the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was at Truth, and they do a real broad spectrum of projects and have loads of clients and lots of huge multi-market projects. So it was a bit intimidating at first because I'd kind of gone from doing nice cartoons with kids to being like, what does Philips or Amazon want to do about the strategic problem? And I was a bit like, I was excited to get involved though, and it's very fast paced, and I picked up a lot quite quickly.
Yeah.
So that was quite interesting, and I got the opportunity to travel, which I hadn't really. I'd gone to Birmingham with work, but then at Truth, within a few months, I'd gone to New York, I'd gone to Germany. I was doing like Candy Crush projects in New York. Like it was really exciting, and it felt like very new compared to what I thought research was before.
Yeah. No, there is this element of research. People think it's just like, I say it all the time. People think it's boring. People clipboards, that sort of thing. But you see, some of the people in the industry live in rock star lives all over the world, jet setting. It's crazy.
I mean, especially before the pandemic. Yeah. Nowadays, I feel like we lost some of that. They're like, oh, you can just do it online or outsource it or whatever. But before, I knew people that were jet setting on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it was an excuse just to go on lots of free holidays, but I mean, people were saying though that at some point in your career you'll be fed up of going away, which I was like, I don't want to get to that point. I know, I was like, I don't understand that.
Haven't got there yet.
I know, I never got that, but I guess if you're just flying in and out, you don't get to see anything.
Yeah.
Then maybe, but anyway, yeah, so I haven't had any foreign travel since the pandemic for work, but maybe.
Not even a holiday, it's horrible.
No.
Not even a staycation, it's horrible. So, alright, so you're at Truth, then, again, broadening horizons. You said that it was a bit overwhelming, the level at one point. Did you, what happened after that, basically? When did you take the reins and say, got this?
Yeah, so I felt like I was gradually embracing it and kind of rushing up the ranks almost. Like I was kind of running all the time, which obviously you get tired when you're running at a certain level. So it was nice because I felt like I wanted to gain loads of experience really quickly. I didn't want to just be sitting there like filling in spreadsheets with people or something. I wanted to actually be doing research and talking to people.
It's interesting.
So I was allowed a lot of freedom to do that, and then I got to a certain point where I was like, let me take a breather and stop running. And obviously I think the pandemic made everyone reflect on what they wanted to do. And so I ended up moving to Magenta, which is like a small team where like we have a range of backgrounds, but like because we're small, we don't really have like internal politics, and you're not kind of wasting time on like who's running this or like who disagrees with who doesn't want to work with who, and you kind of just feel like you're a core team of people that have a range of experience. There's a beauty
in a small team like
Definitely.
that.
I've always been in relatively small teams, but like being in like almost a micro agency, it's quite reassuring. Like you always feel like everyone's got each other's back, which is nice.
Yeah. So unit, little family.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, that's a cheesy term. But I don't like them. But when companies say that, I always get a bit suspicious. So
we're like a family, a dysfunctional family.
Yeah. We'll keep you working till late in the night. We're still your family. Like always red flag when they do that.
So, how did the transition happen? And was it like, were you headhunted? Did you see an advert and were like, oh, I like that? Like, what happened?
I kind of saw it, and I did know someone who was working at Magenta at the time, so it was kind of a perfect mix of things. It just sounded right for me, so I just applied, kind of spoke to Sarah, who was the founder, and made the leap and did it.
So tell me about Magenta then. What is, in elevator pitch, well, I mean, we've got time, but tell me about Magenta. Do you know much about when they started, when they founded and all that sort of thing? Maybe you can give me the sort of like the life story and where we're at now?
I'll give it a go. I haven't been there since the start, but from what I know, it was founded 6 years ago, just over 6 years ago, by Sarah Jenkins, my boss, Dr. Sarah Jenkins, I should say. She's got a PhD. Don't forget that, yeah. And Sarah had been working like at a senior level in like global insight company and was a bit, I think, deflated by the lack of research you got to do. And it was more like this politics that I was just mentioning, like you're just managing people all the time and internal stuff rather than actually doing qualitative research, which is obviously why most people do the job. So I think she wanted to kind of go back to the roots of it all and kind of set up her own business where she can kind of take the reins and actually build a nice team of people who are actually really excited about what they do and actually get stuck into the project work rather than messing around with like internal
management and meetings after meetings.
Exactly. Like I imagine those big companies are just being meetings one after the other all day, which sounds awful. I've
never been big corporate. I've never even been in a company larger than say 15 people. But through Core, having interacted with some of these large companies and seeing, I was like, we've had an idea, we need a meeting to discuss the idea, to have another meeting to then discuss what we feel about the idea. It's like red tape. In, those things are in place for a reason. It makes sense that they need to be there. You got lots of people's lives in your hands, but it's really, I couldn't. So those two, like, just do something.
There's a point where it stops being like, I don't know, people stop having excitement for what you're doing, which is really sad because you might be like doing something really interesting, or people might be talking about a topic like core, like diversity and inclusion, trying to actually promote that. But then if it just becomes meeting after meeting, there's no action, then it's a bit like pointless in the end. It's like, it's just taking the power out of it.
Yeah, was it death by Zoom call and all of that stuff? So tell me more about Magenta then. So 6 years ago, founded, vision. What is there like a niche, or is it sort of just covering? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'd say we don't have like a specialism. We work across like commercial, B2B, charity work, which I really enjoy the charity work, which we do quite a lot of. It's not like we have a collective focus on one sector, or it's more about like the type of project. So we prefer things that like can dig our teeth into like an interesting topic area or like exploring a new area rather than just holding back and being like, we just want to do lots of short, quick win like projects. It's more like we want to look at how people engage with a certain topic or like why people are interested in a certain category. I don't know, that's what I like especially. And especially the charity projects, which, as we mentioned earlier, they don't always have the biggest budgets, which is a shame because they're often the most interesting projects and the most beneficial for people as well. Like I feel like they're the most impactful.
Yeah, when you work on a project and you know that actually this work may actually help people's lives, it's a different feeling than, this work may actually sell more Coca-Cola or something. It's not the same thing.
Yeah. And I think it's not just charity projects, because you can also have like diversity and inclusion projects. I really enjoy even in a commercial setting because you still feel like you're having an impact. And like if it was sustainability, there's other things you can do that aren't just they might ultimately have a profit goal, which obviously all commercial businesses ultimately do, but when you feel like you can pull it away from that, it's quite nice.
It's that social versus market, really. When I speak to some of my social research friends, I often wonder, like, did I start on the wrong side? Am I actually meant to be on that side? But it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, social research does sound really interesting. I think I would enjoy it, but from what I've heard, it's a lot of long report writing that doesn't necessarily get read, and a lot of again, politics. I mean, it technically is politics all the time, so it's not as exciting and amazing as it kind of sounds.
I'm glad you said that.
But I mean, I know I haven't worked in it, so I'm not sorry to the social researchers, you know.
No,
I'm sure people love it.
Confirm, not deny. No.
Yeah. But from my experience, it's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah. Well, so right, what are the type of projects that you guys have been working on recently?
All right, so it's a real range. At the moment, I'm working on family history research with a...
Cool.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of projects with a family history site over the last
Is
couple
that
of years.
like the DNA one or the one that tracks your...
They can do it all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they encompass loads of different services, but it's had a specific military focus, so very niche topic area, but it's as with everything that you kind of assume might be a bit dry, you get into it and you think people are really passionate about it. As soon as someone is excited about the topic, you become excited. You're like, oh wow, this actually really means a lot to people. It's their history, it's like where they come from, their heritage, they want to find out the stories of people who lived before them.
That is cool.
So that's an example. A few months ago we did a great project for chartered accountants for a specific industry body on diversity and inclusion, and we spoke to 5 of their like key target groups. I don't know if that's the right term they used, but and I learned a lot from that project about...
So within the accountancy...
Yeah, within the industry. So like it was specific to students who were training, so they work and train. Anyway, cut a long story short, I learned loads about specific groups I hadn't really learned that much about before, because I mean, as people were saying in the research, like you hear a lot about specific groups, not necessarily enough, but like I hadn't learned much about neurodiversity before, which is really undervalued. I think people don't acknowledge it, like the different ways that people think and approach tasks, and especially in a workplace environment, is completely
Well, for
ignored.
years, it's been something that you kind of sort of hide away, like hope that no one knows that you've got this neurodiversity.
Yeah.
So I, as an adult, discovered I've got ADHD.
Okay.
When you look at the actual, what the characteristics are, used correctly, I feel like it's my superpower.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's literally like the thing that gives me the edge on so many different things that I do. Sure, there's things that are more difficult because of it, but if you learn how to, see, for so long, no one's been focused on that in a working environment. If you was to get, okay, you know what, for this particular task, what we really need is someone, autistic or something who's going to be able to, it's just such a, I think you're right.
I think there definitely is like a superpower in it that is really ignored, and people even get mistreated for it, and like if they work in a certain style or if they talk in a certain way, then they can be like judged for it, which is like people are just really ignorant about it generally, I think, which is a shame, but I felt enlightened by that.
It's similar to school, not everyone learns in the same way. I remember certain kids who could learn in the same way. Oh, you're going to do great in life, da-da-da-da-da. The ones who was saying it the other day, I think is Stephen Bartlett. He was saying the same, a similar thing, the ones who didn't do well in school just assumed that they're obviously not going to do well in life because they got D's and E's and all this stuff, when they're just not the prototype. They learn in a different way. Exactly. It's the same at work, people work in a different way. So I think Modern Times sounds like a really interesting project, that one.
There was also another group which was people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds.
Okay.
So that really showed how much that's ignored in the workplace as well. And people, I mean, obviously everyone knows accents. People judge accents all the time, especially in the UK. But beyond that, like just the financial barriers to even being a student, to being in your first job, like that's so, I keep saying the word undervalued, but like it's not acknowledged by anyone. You don't even hear about it. And like even if a few companies have schemes in place where they're like, oh yeah, we want to like try and get more people from this background in, like I feel like it's just, there needs to be a whole societal transformation.
I agree.
Where people understand and kind of respect that, and obviously those people get the support and don't have to deal with those issues in the first place.
I agree. But again, that is kind of like a superpower, because, all right, growing up in a lower socioeconomic environment, I've always found, at least, I'm from that myself, I feel like I know people. You know, like, because I know people from all different walks of life, and I feel like people who haven't been in that situation, they're just missing a whole element that, you know, as particularly as a researcher, if you're lacking that element, then, you know, it's a weakness.
Yeah, and research is this really middle class industry. It's really London centric and it's really middle class. I grew up on a council estate in a really middle class town. So I kind of saw both worlds at the same time. Like my school was full of quite middle class, but like a mix of people. But I felt like I kind of had two worlds, even within like a small town that I was in. So I think that gave me a real like interesting perspective on how people work and like how those different environments work. But I was going to say like the reason I kind of probably got into researching like that was something I was good at is because my mum was a hairdresser. She's still a hairdresser. So she's a mobile hairdresser, and so you know how hairdressers love getting in everyone's business. That's obviously my mum. So she's always asking people what's going on in your life, like trying to make new people comfortable all the time and just make them feel like they're safe to say what they want.
That is brilliant.
So I've obviously picked up all those skills, and now I'm like, let me use this in this context.
You should just use that as training. Like, you want to be a researcher? Go and work.
Honestly, I would go around all of her old ladies with her, like handing her the perm rollers, and she'd just be chatting with them, getting all their family stories out.
That's wicked.
So it's got to have a bit of nosiness to be in research.
That is wicked. So when we got in, there was a whole bunch of brainstorming and stuff. I know it's top secret, so I'm not going to share anything that I may or may not have seen, but. I saw something along the lines of a USP. I'm not going to pressure you to say it word for word, but what was the essence of it?
So I think the main thing we were trying to do is cut through jargon, because this industry is full of jargon, it's full of buzzwords. Some of them actually are like real words that make sense, but I think you just hear them so many times that we were like, what actually makes us different? And I think the key things that were coming out is that small isn't a bad thing. Like I was saying to myself, like we're small and mighty, not small but mighty.
Yes.
And there's a real benefit in like having our core team. We have a huge range of knowledge and like experience as well. And we're not restricted by any specific categories or anything like that. So, I mean, I think the thing about Magenta, we were trying to like play on like the colour thing as well, because it's like, it's not immediately obvious what that refers to, but we were like...
So it's a shade of red, right?
Yeah, it's like pinky red kind of colour, mix of blue and red. So we were like looking at auras of different colours and stuff, but you kind of wanted, so we were like trying to strip out all the jargon and basically say that we're bringing colour to the stories that we're telling. So like, I don't know, that isn't the USP, but that's ultimately the kind of way we were going.
I like that. Is there any exciting things on the horizon?
Well, we've got a project with you coming up, which I won't go into detail.
It's going to be good.
Yeah, looks a lot. Anything exciting on the horizon? Well, actually, we've got we're growing, basically. We've got new people coming to the team. We're looking for more and more people at the moment. Obviously, everyone's like trying to recruit right now, but we're intent on getting new people in the team. We've got a lot of work. We're very busy. Like, we work with freelancers, and we're trying to kind of bring a lot in-house and make sure that we've got a good core team of people. So,
are you finding it difficult hiring at the minute?
Yeah, I think it's difficult for everyone. We've literally just done a big project with a client who's struggling with a recruitment crisis in the hospitality industry, which was really interesting, because we spoke to people working there about like, how can you actually improve this? So,
well, I think hospitality in particular is because so many of them got axed at the beginning of the pandemic and furloughed indefinitely. They've all moved into different sectors.
Well, there were a lot of months of people sitting at home to figure out what they wanted to do. I mean, what did they say? Fatima could retrain in cyber. Do you remember that?
I don't remember
that. Was a government campaign of a ballet dancer who they told she could work in cyber. Anyway, so, I mean, people have actually thought of different options. I'm not saying Fatima should retrain in cyber at
Oh,
all.
yeah, I do. And wasn't it, he said something like, what did he say? People who work in something need to get a real job or something.
Yeah, there's been plenty of that over the last few years.
Different things.
So, I mean, people have shifted their priorities, figured out what they actually want to do. and it's hard to draw people back if they've already decided against something. So I think it's hard. I mean, I think the most important thing that you can do when you're struggling with a recruitment crisis is research.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
bring it back to research. It's like you've got to figure out what people want and then give it to them.
Absolutely, that was a nice little plug there.
Yeah. Come to us if you're struggling.
You know, you want to know what to do. But no, I think you're spot on, and I think there's also another element happening where this new generation are starting to understand that they are the commodity, and you know, companies need to be offering what they want rather than the other way around, which has been the mindset for you know, since forever, right? Mm-hmm. Which is very interesting.
There's a real generational gap now in attitudes to work and what the employer should offer, what the employee should bring. Like, it's quite interesting to watch that kind of tension between the generations.
What would you say in the time that you've been here? What would you say is the biggest challenge in terms of field work? Because I've got to bring myself into it a little bit. In terms of actually, you know, executing the projects, recruitment targets, or even further along the parts that, you know, actually conducting the research. What's the biggest challenge that you guys have?
I'm trying to think of it from a fieldwork angle now.
Doesn't
No.
I typically like to, because that then tells me, if I focus on getting a bit more of that.
Yeah. Well, actually, I guess a huge part of research is project management, and I think a lot of people don't realise, or they probably do realise it, but they don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
Like the project managers, the fieldwork side, that is the core of what we do. Like we're not going to speak to anyone if we don't have any people to speak to. So I think making sure that is as kind of streamlined and as simple and consistent as possible. Like if there's a lot of little steps that go on throughout project management that you have to keep in mind, and I don't know, I think every researcher should also be a project manager. Like,
I agree.
You shouldn't just be like, oh, I'm purely a researcher and someone else does the rest. I think you need to work.
So agree with
you don't have to like do all the admin, but
you
like
should know how and sort of know what goes into it. I'm so glad you said it, because it's been a pet peeve since I got into the industry, because I've always been on the fieldwork side, right? And you see some clients who get what it is that you do, and so you can work with them, because you say, this is happening, that's happening, that's like, okay, no problem, boom, boom, boom. And you've got others who have no clue what you do. They just think you're just sitting on a whole bunch of people, the targets, like waiting to do their research, and it's like, why are you not giving it to me yesterday?
Yeah.
And it's just like...
It's almost a classic agency-client relationship though. So there are plenty of clients who have no idea how research works, and they're like, oh, give me something in 3 days' time, I'll give you $5,000. And like, you've got to give me 20 people like in a workshop, and it's like, you have to kind of educate people, which sometimes people don't want to take the time for. But I think appreciate the fieldwork agencies.
It makes no sense, right? It's like you and go to, hey, build me $1 million house tomorrow. Come on, where is it? I want to move in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like,
it's unreasonable demands.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. So that is reassuring then. I know that we can actually deliver on that, so we're all good. Any last things you want to talk about, or just anyone you want to shout out?
Shout out, my best mates I'm staying with in London right now. I'm joking.
Let's shout out my mum.
Yeah,
See you in the
salon. Everyone down here at Magenta. No, I guess I feel like I want to. Let me think. Restart.
That's all right. You know what we won't do? I wanted to ask you one more thing beforehand.
Right.
So, listening to your story, right, you seem to be one of these people who are hungry. You know, you can see it in what you were talking about wanting to run through everything and get to the next and do more and do more. 2 questions. First of all, where do you think that comes from? And second question, what is your vision for your next few years?
Okay, so thankfully I feel like I've stopped running now. I'm still probably like briskly walking or jogging, but it's sustainable, which is quite nice.
But why run in the first place?
Because I wanted to just get involved in everything. I was like excited and like wanted to have that responsibility. I didn't want to just be sitting there typing notes. I feel like when you in any entry level position, you're kind of given all the not the crap work, but like it's not the juicy, exciting
Don't
stuff.
make the tea.
Yeah. Well, not quite that, but yeah, pretty much. You're not really allowed to do what you want to do, and like the more you kind of progress, the more responsibility you get at any level. Like even you don't have to be at like a senior level to like. Sometimes senior people are like, I trust you, so you can do whatever you want. I've had that before, and I've not like been a pretty junior. So I guess where it came from, it's just that excitement to get involved. Like I like research, I like talking to people, and I want to do more of it, basically.
I like that. It's passion for the craft.
Yeah.
I love that. And then, okay, so I guess that ties into the future. Is it more of the same?
Yeah, no. I hope not. Like, I mean, one of the best things is that no month, no year is ever going to be the same in research.
Yeah.
You're always going to be trying something new.
Yeah.
I want to get involved in more new methodologies as well. A few months ago we did something with wearable camera glasses.
Oh, cool.
Which was so cool. I felt like I was in James Bond or Spy Kids or something.
Was it like Google glasses or?
They weren't Google ones, but yeah, it was that kind of thing where you very subtle, like walking around with like a camera here.
Oh, wow.
All obviously very GDPR safe. It wasn't just like filming randomness, but that is quite exciting to me, and I think a lot of people act like I was saying earlier, like VR. People just like say words like VR and AI as if that's the future, but like I think for me, I want to kind of continue learning more about people and kind of sharing the stories of what they want and what they're interested in.
That is wicked.